podcast peeps. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Robin Rose, a true pioneer in kidney health and a visionary physician dedicated to transforming how we understand and protect one of the body's most vital organs. Dr. Rose is the creator of Rhenology, a groundbreaking clinical approach focused on kidney success, not just kidney failure, and on early intervention to preserve and regenerate kidney function before serious disease takes hold. Her work challenges the conventional view that declining kidney function is an inevitable one-way street and instead shows how lifestyle, mindset, and cutting-edge regenerative strategies can change the trajectory of kidney health. Her journey into the field isn't just academic, it's deeply personal. After facing kidney cancer and severe kidney decline herself, Dr. Rose embarked on a mission to reclaim her health and in the process, develop the insights that now guide clinicians and patients alike. She has helped shine a light on how kidney function impacts virtually every system in the body, from cardiovascular health to energy metabolism, and why monitoring and supporting kidney health early can make all the difference. Dr. Rose is also the author of Rhenology Peptides, a comprehensive resource exploring how energizing tools like bioregulatory peptides can support renal regeneration and whole body wellness. Today, she'll help us understand why our kidneys deserve closer attention, how early signs of decline are often missed, why traditional markers like GFR alone don't tell the full story, and what practical steps we can take to support these essential organs long before crisis hits. Please help me to welcome Dr. Robin Rose. Our listeners who I know that I have, and I'm sure Dr. Gabby does too, I have a ton of patients that are super excited to listen to Dr. Robin Rose, who not only is an incredible physician, an author, a deep thinker, a regenerative and functional medicine leader, obviously, especially when it comes to kidney health on so many different levels. And she has created this incredible, I carry it around, my husband laughs at me, but she has written this incredible book that I told
in the office. I have mine too.
you do too. Oh my gosh,
That's
it's
good
amazing.
for weightlifting, you guys, just in case, it's like really good to dance with. I do.
So as you guys can see, she's going to be nice and sassy and full of spirit because this is personal to Dr. Rose. Like, not only did she walk down this path, but she has taken, I don't even know how many people with you down this path, and it's helped heal them. So I can't wait to hear more. I'm sure Dr. Gabby knows more, but I can't wait to hear your story and tell us about what brought you to this incredible textbook that I literally, like, on the second page, I was like, I'm even more in love with you after reading that, because that's incredible.
When did you start writing your book, Robin? Because it's a pretty
It's a
good.
lot, isn't it? It's a lot of information.
Yeah.
How?
When it started.
I mean, this is a long journey already. It's like, where has time gone? I just had my 75th birthday, and I'm like, whoa, okay. And I don't feel it. It's really amazing. I came to Hawaii for the winter in 2013, got a norovirus. So I got dehydrated, and we did some homeopathics and, some acupuncture. I sort of got better, but I never felt better. And we went back to Oregon because we actually then bought our house here and we're packing to come home. And I started feeling crazy. I mean, crazy stuff, like emotional stuff that just was like, what is this? Sometimes we have these experiences and it's like, you don't know what it is, but it's something. And I went to see a newly trained integrative physician with blood pressure spikes that were quite scary. My baseline was like the 90/50 blood pressure. They were always like, are you? And this was like 210, 220/110. Like, okay, I thought I had an adrenal tumor. Actually, it's like, and the funny thing is, I literally had to be fierce, use my Jersey girl words with the doctor who was trying to be a nice new integrative doctor. Repeat after me. I am healthy. Come on, say it. I said this story because I have bad PTSD from this. And I was like, and I used that word that I won't say now. And I got a CAT scan. And then I called the radiologist and I said, so what? And he said, I don't know how to do this. And I said, just read it to me. And so that was when I found out I had a left upper pole mass. well circumscribed. So this was early enough to deal with it. Had a nephrectomy because I was very clear, like, I want this out. And 3 weeks post op, I came to Hawaii. And 3 months later, I went back to Oregon for a post op check. It was Christmas Eve, and I was supposed to have a CAT scan. First, they said, your insurance won't pay for this. And so my husband like slaps down a credit card and says, just do it. I love that. And it's like, yeah. And I'm laying there on the table, and they said, well, we have good news and bad news. And so the good news was the insurance was going to pay for it. And the bad news is my GFR was 30, which isn't what you're told. You can live with one kidney easily. I wasn't doing that well. And so that was the beginning of this odyssey of, all right, I had kidney cancer, a nephrectomy, and I'm going to just go back to my life. Instead, I went to see a nephrologist who basically said, don't worry. When it's time, we'll put you on dialysis. And in my mind, I used those same words. And it was like, I'm going to figure this out because I'm not interested in dialysis. I actually went to the dialysis center on my island with these like baby looking two young women sitting at the desk. And I went to the dialysis and I said, hi, I just came here to let you know I'll never see you again. And they're looking at me like, what kind of howly is this? And then we said, well, here's what's going on. And they're like, oh, yeah, no, never. I don't want to see you ever again. So, you know, I couldn't get any help though. I mean, and that was a lot of why this journey has started because the information I was getting was basically just hang out until you get sick and then we'll install plumbing. You're not a candidate for a transplant, neither of which interested me. I was really like, okay, expect to lose 5% a year was told to me, which is, like, you don't do that. And so I sat here. The first thing I was like, my potassium's elevated. Quite, so I started looking stuff up. So I was saying before we started, I have a shelf of handwritten notebooks. I just started gathering information. This was all before AI. So I was just, I would just sit in this beautiful place and I started figuring things out, started changing diet. I actually did a consult with Jenna Henderson, who's a naturopath, who also is a CKD patient, a wounded healer who guided me in ways that were fabulous. It got me started. Here's what you eat. Here's how you sleep. Here's what you drink. Here's some supplements to take. And that was the beginning. And I'm so flattered she bought my book. Began adding and subtracting things, a lot of working with stress, because one of the things I realized is just the pathology of it affects the nervous system. And this isn't talked about much. I just did a chat with Fiona Chin, who's another naturopath who works with kidney in a podcast, that what happens, the body is reacting. I actually had a doctor say to me, and it's one we know, you need to get a handle on your anxiety. And I'm like, I'm not anxious. I live in paradise. I realized that what was happening was this agitation. I couldn't relate to anything. And so, yeah, I had a COMT defect. What does that mean? You can't break down catecholamines. I had nitric oxide in the toilet, and it's ridiculously low. That actually adds to catecholamine breakdown. And there's an enzyme called Rhenology, which gets low when you have kidney decline, and that breaks up catecholamines. Like my husband and I would react to something, a coconut would fall in the creek. It's like a big bang that goes off. And I'm still reacting hours later. And he was just like, oh, it was a coconut. No worries. It's like having the dog barking all day. It's like, there's nothing going on. Be quiet. And so I started really working with, the vagus, with the neuro aberrancy that happens, which actually affects the heart and the lungs and blah, blah, blah. And so slowly I started seeing all of these things are going on. There's so many conversations. And so gradually I got my GFR up to 51, which was when I went to see the last of the nephrologists who I saw, who basically just said to me, you're going to hurt yourself. No, you're hurting yourself. And I'm like, did you notice I went from here to here? Well, I don't know about this, so you should stop because you just should. And I was like, I'm really over this. And then I heard about peptides and the original peptide information, BPC 157 and TA1 and I started studying those intensely, and I got some BPC. And, a little bit of a sidebar, the nephrectomy left me with a very damaged sigmoid, which
Mm.
affected how my bowels worked or didn't work, in fact. And it was a bit of misery. When we all started getting to know each other, my life was terrible. BPC injection, it changed, totally changed my life. I've continued to do it, but I actually don't anymore because it fixed it. I mean, I get up in the morning and do what everybody does and then goes about my business. And it wasn't like that. And so I started seeing that there's a lot more to this story. I would call it the low-hanging fruit, sleep. I had to get my sleep together. I mean, me and Cat Tubes were talking in the middle of the night. Now I'm wide awake. And, and so I took it seriously and, some herbs, some supplements and some peptides. I still want to stay up. And that was another part of this neuroadrenal thing that happens where the kidney declined body switches itself. And so there's a reason why people are up peeing, the blood pressure goes up at night. You're like, where's the party? Everybody else is going to sleep. That's physiology. It isn't a personality defect. It's like a doctor needs to address this to get it to repair. Exercise, you don't feel good. You can still lay in bed and do, I mean, it's amazing. Movement matters. And, there were times where I didn't feel good. I'm like, and so it really became to me this self supporting, self-sustaining love affair that I'm gonna do what helps me, and I'm gonna love myself enough to do it. I stopped going out to eat, or if I go to somebody's house, I would bring food. Socially inappropriate, people get offended, but it's like, "You know what? I'm sorry," "Get over it." And so it really becomes like a whole lifestyle, and I realize we all know about the labs. Okay, you get a glomerular filtration rate. But what I've learned recently, and this has been so exciting, it was actually came of Ellie Campbell's kidney conference, and the talk I did was I figured out tubules need to be in the conversation, and we're not looking at them. They decline first. We don't have any way that we're monitoring them. By the time your GFR and your creatinine are moving, there's already been damage for a long time, and there's stuff that we know to do. So, I have a whole new like, wow, this is fascinating, and I'm still learning. Trying to figure out labs that people can just go to their regular lab and get without it not working. There's a lot of labs that are available for research, and I'm hoping that that'll change because my goal is let's not wait until people need dialysis. Let's not wait till stage 4. Let's not even wait till stage 3.
Right,
If we
right.
can find things early, oh my God, I mean, some people really do want to change. And the thing that I learned about tubules, so that's what I was going to say, is they discern. We know, okay, the glomerulus filters everything in the blood goes through the glomerulus. Then it goes in this elegant system of tubules. There's lots of them, and they're mitochondria loaded. They're vulnerable to the toxins of life, so they can get damaged. But what do? They discern, what do I keep and what do I not keep? I mean, that's powerful spiritual awareness. And so I've taken it to like, I want metaphysical kidney in my life. I want to filter what the world's about. I want to discern. You should stay away from me. You can be close to me. I don't want to eat that. I need this. Gee, and I need to hydrate. So it's been a journey. And then I discovered bioregulator peptides. And they are amazing. And that's why I ended up writing the book I needed. And this is a book for me. I just, instead of writing it, I typed it so that everybody else could see it. And so basically, in the 70s, the Soviets ordered Vladimir Havanson, a physician gerontologist, to discover substances that would protect their military from American military, like radioactive and biological warfare. And he did. And then got amazing amount of funding from the Soviets to keep looking. So there's decades of amazing research, highly funded research. And what they are, so we know proteins are these big, convoluted molecules of which we are made. And proteins are what our DNA codes to make. So you take off most of the peptides, like the BPC, if this is the protein, here's BPC. It's just a small piece. They're more agile. But bioregulators are tiny, 2 to 4 amino acids. They're very agile. They get into the cell, they get into the nucleus. And the cool thing is they actually lodge in the DNA. There's hardly anything that actually does this, but they lodge in the DNA, they stretch it open. And we all know that life damages our genes. That's why we care about what do you eat, what are you breathing, pollutants, illnesses, infections, all tweak the chromatin and the histones. These things get in there and they repair them. Kidney disease basically, is a toxin induced situation. Some of it's genetic, but even when there's genetic damage, I spoke with a geneticist kind of recently who said, in fact, the epigenetic repair will make it easier for a damaged gene to do the best it can. And so, so it's not fixing genetic diseases, but it basically back to factory settings for a lot of things. And there's an art to it. There's a lot of biohacking with it. Just throw this in there and that in there. And, I found it to be way more complicated. And so that's, part of the book is really beginner's book. It's just what is this stuff? And, it's each case is different. My issues are different than other people's. There's some generalizations, but every case that I work with, it's really fascinating because there's a lot of ways that people get to kidney disease. I mean, the ones we talk about, high blood pressure and diabetes, autoimmune, we know that. But I really see it in a wider toxins and infections. I mean, all the autoimmune diseases, yes, neoplastic things. Medications, big stresses. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people who started having massive decline in their kidney function after either having COVID or taking COVID vaccines. And so, we got a, we got a problem. I call it the kidney demic. And the statistics only look at stage 3, 4, and 5 and failure. So when we add stage 2, which I'm going, stage 2 is not normal. It doesn't mean it's disease, oh, I'm so sick. So I kind of go capital C, capital K, little d, chronic kidney decline. We used to call it kidney insufficiency. And, there's so much that we know to do. I mean, in our functional community, we know what to do about mitochondria. Well, there's a start. We know about dysbiosis. The gut inflammation damages kidney. There's huge body of literature about it. Some really high-end university honorable research that says inflamed dysbiotic gut and or mouth leads to kidney inflammation. And kidney inflammation is across the board. It's what everybody with kidney decline has to deal with inflammation. So again, we know this. We know about heavy metals, and that's well known. Nobody looks for them. We don't know. Well, we don't know why you have this. That's what I was told. I ended up, I had a mercury level, I had a lead level. I mean, you start finding all kinds of things. And it may not be, well, cause and effect. This is the only reason. That's not really it. It's more, there's a symphony of things synergistically and negatively causing this stress to the kidneys. And so it's kind of like the Columbo thing, like, let's figure this out. I mean, and I've seen people amazingly improve, from like GFR in the teens. And within a very short time, I get an email, oh, my GFR was 40 something. It's like, victory. And so, oh yeah, so what I want to say is, why is this called Rhenology peptides? So nephrology, God bless them, they take care of very sick people. But in conventional medicine, ignored way too long. And primary care isn't taking up the slack. So that's my message. But what I realized is my oncologist said to me, do not use the term kidney failure. You're not in failure. Don't use that. Bad for the head. She was right.
Sounds so harsh. Say failure to anyone.
I know. I
That's
know.
scary.
I mean, and it affects you. I mean, it really does. I mean, I come home and go to bed for 2 days and cry every time I go see a nephrologist. And so somewhere in their literature, they were, we're not going to use the term renal anymore. Nobody knows what it is. So I was like, I'm taking it. And so I came up with the term renology, the art and clinical science of kidney success. Feel your limbic system open up when you hear that. The possibility of regenerating tissue is very real. However, if you're drinking your Pepsi and you're eating your crap and you're staying up till 3 and you're blah, 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 you're counteracting the possibility. No matter what you're doing, you do all this stuff. And meanwhile, you're like smacking it. So we don't have a wonder cure, but I used to have AIDS patients who would tell me, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. I'd be like, whoa. But I get it because I feel more full in my life, more full of myself, that I'm here to protect myself and be as generous as I can. But I'm putting my seatbelt on. And many of us don't. We make excuses as doctors. I mean, like, oh, I got to do all this stuff. And I don't even keep the ringer on my phone. I had PTSD from the beeper, 50 admissions a
The
weekend. And
on
you're like,
call.
oh my God. I
Oh
know,
my
right?
God. I
And
think we're all
so
family, aren't we? Weren't we before
I'm
we jump? Well,
yeah, I'm
actually,
internal medicine. Yeah.
your internal medicine.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was on call for quite a bit, several years. I hate my pager. I was
Ugh.
so happy when I got rid of it.
I
Yeah.
know somebody in my residency actually plopped hers in the toilet. And we all celebrate. I don't know whether it was intentional or not. None of us asked. Like, we should all do that.
Seriously. I got so like conditioned to it that now if they're and I delivered babies. So literally like any kind of vibration, I'm awake and like ready to catch a baby. So it totally ruined my sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, I've talked to people who my father's business is auto detailing and, I have an autoimmune disease with kidney disease. You can't do that work. I have to do that work. And so it's like we all really have to we got to be honest with ourselves, and I constantly like, what am I doing that I can change? Not self abusive, like you messed yourself up. I mean, I can think of things I did in my earlier years that contributed to this. But we all live and we do the best we can. And so all I have is now. What can I do today to make this day as good as I can? And then, a bit of a long-term project because I didn't really want to die in 5 years and didn't.
So I have a question, Robin. I was kind of curious how long it took for you to improve your GFR, because you said originally was like 30
Yeah,
or below 30
it was
to
30.
like it took several years. Like what was your, I guess, with your
I didn't
journey?
have the information I have now. So it was kind of slow. I was recovering from cancer. So that's always, this kind of pendulum swing. And again, I was like, health food Harriet gets cancer. I mean, I was this health food nut from the 70s, and was already doing a lot of this stuff. And so what I found, I'm not quite answering your question yet, was I had a lot of stresses, crazy stuff. My medical practice was embezzled. My father became demented, and that was big drama. And I basically sold my medical practice, moved in, sold my house, moved in with my mother, tried to help her. In the process of that, my partner's heroin addict daughter's kid became my foster child, a screaming 2-year-old with a mother that was breathing and freaking out. And there's more to this story, I'll spare you. And so then my mother died and my partner assaulted me, and a week later I met Paul, the love of my life.
Oh, I love
And so it's
that.
like, whoa. I mean, that was just like,
Happy endings. That's
and
awesome.
so, yeah, I mean, Tammy and I have talked about this. I mean, it was like, I went from the depths of insanity and despair to like, yes, this is yes. And so, I really had a lot to unravel. Like, how did I get to that much? I mean, the embezzlement was bad enough. I mean, it was like, damn, damn, no self esteem. I just felt like a total failure. And so it took a while, probably several years for me because I wasn't getting any help. I mean, at this point, the people I'm working with, I'm like, all right, get rid of this, add resveratrol, da da da. You have, I mean, there's so many things to do. And so slowly I started adding things. I mean, we were doing acupuncture and homeopathy and, adding a bunch of supplements. My husband basically has become an herbalist. And I mean, we have an amazing garden and I have a pantry full of big jars of tinctures that he makes. We've worked on formulas for cardio and formulas for immune system and formulas for kidney. And so so there's a lot to do. And so by several years, it started going up. Once I got like to the higher 30s and into the low 40s, I felt better. I mean, at first, it was like my brain didn't work. And I've talked a lot with Kat about this, that what goes on in the kidney and goes on in the brain, very similar, and so it just so fascinating. And so, very gradually, I realized these guys don't know what they're talking about, and finding some people in our community who could be helpful and mostly depending on myself. I mean, I figured out phosphorus. I mean, I was actually ridiculed by a group of functional nephrologists because I cared about phosphorus and early kidney disease. And in the last couple of weeks, I'm working on a problem of calcium phosphate crystals. It's very important, and it's part of how come the bones and the blood vessels decline in kidney disease, two major bad things. So I like to look early in stage 2. What's the phosphorus? And the interesting thing with phosphorus is, there's a normal range, but in the middle of it is where it's safe for in kidney. And that top half of normal range, there's already calcium going from the bones into the arteries. Two very bad issues you don't want. And again, there's diet. Phosphorus is in a lot of nasty stuff. So right away, okay, get rid of that. Then there's things to do and work on the gut because often it's a gut dysbiosis issue. And so, all in all, I really want to do this communicating because people are desperate. I mean, they're desperate. And just before we started, I mean, I'm answering things from my website. People are in so desperate need. They're not getting full on help. And I think primary care needs to know what to do for stage 2 and 3 and even before. And thank God we have a few nephrologists that we can work with, and they're starting to talk about earlier testing and earlier kidney disease too, because without that, what are we supposed to do? Wait? You sit there waiting till you're worse? I mean, it's not
When I trained, I was told only to worry when people would get to that CKD stage 3.
right. Exactly.
I didn't know what to do before that. If they were like not
Yes.
CKD 3 and they were like 2 or like in the first stages, I was like, oh, we'll just monitor. See you in 6 months. See you in a
Don't
year.
worry, people live a long time with this was what I was told, and it's like and I was already with the GFR 30. It's like, "Okay, don't worry is good advice, but do nothing is not."
So what are like your top like the must labs that we need to sort of like focus, especially if we want to prevent CKD, chronic
Yeah,
kidney
yeah,
issue?
good
What
question.
what would
I
be
mean,
like your top
basic
ones you
labs
have to
offer
do?
a lot, right? So you look at a CBC, there can be anemia. That's a thing with kidneys. So, are you seeing early whispers? I start cataloging. I want to know what's on the chem panel because, I mean, you get some kidney information. I want the electrolytes. Like today, I looked at the sodium was low normal, the chloride was high normal. That starts triggering me as something's going on in the tubules because, the tubules have these transporters and discernment. And so the electrolytes get messed up. You get a sodium of 122 and somebody's not doing good. And so there's a lot of information. The CO2 is an enormously important thing. So, we're not even talking about fancy labs yet. Like use the ones everybody gets. CO2 basically tells you, acid base. And so when it's too low, too acidic. Almost always with kidney, people get too acidic. Not always. And I'm dealing with someone now that's too alkaline. And I'm like, okay, we need to make you more acid. But generally, to generalize, it's we need to get the acidity out. And so the CO2, to me, if it's under 25, I'm already starting to do some interventions, meaning you can use sodium bicarb. You can take a half a teaspoon of of baking soda and water, plug it down, has to be on an empty stomach. It messes up your absorption otherwise, and amazing things can happen. It helps potassiums. Often potassium is elevated because those transporters get confused and the body can't excrete it adequately. And so there you go. And too much potassium causes the nervous system to get a little upset. So, there's just that. The urinalysis obviously is the urine too alkaline? Is there blood in it? Is it too acidic? Is there urobilinogen? There's a lot of info on that. And so right there you can go, something's up. It's like I call this educated intuition. I started doing holistic medicine before we had some of this wonderful testing. I was the test. My
Incredible.
my
You
my,
just need
my
to be a
spidey
good
sense.
historian and, I mean, clinician, gather all information, be playing medical detective, getting to know your patient. Seeing and getting, not just relying obviously on just the lab results as well. But I mean, labs does help, of course, but you need to
Yeah.
be a good clinician.
Totally, and that's one of the topics that I'm into lately is the labs don't show us everything. I can't stand it. Your labs are fine. Next, it's like the labs are helpful, but they are not the whole picture. Okay, so thyroid. You see T3 drop with CKD. The T4 to T3 enzymes don't work as well. Proteins get kind of deranged in kidney disease. And so, and by the way, I want to go back and say the epigenetic improvement with the bioregulators, what it does is it reclaims the ability to produce proteins that our body needs.
Amazing.
That's really the bottom line of it. My factory isn't working. Oh, okay. Now I can produce things that I need. Inflammation markers, very helpful. So here's a whole cluster that I like: calcium, phosphorus,
Yeah.
easy to get, vitamin D, and often I will like to get the 25 hydroxy and the 125 di because that second hydroxyl group is put on in the kidney. So the liver makes the 25. It looks fine. Oh, you're good. It may not be. Again, that's where, a normal lab, well, you got to like actually use your thinking to get to the end of the sentence. Parathyroid hormone, because parathyroid gets messed up. And FGF, which will often rise as an adaptation to protect from phosphorus causing damage. And so if you see an FGF 23, you're like, okay, wait a minute. Phosphorus isn't good. Even if they say normal, but again, my normal is 2.5 to 3.5. The normal range on the lab paper says to 4.5 milligrams per deciliter, but there's damage happening. There's a chapter in the book about phosphorus because I was like, this can't get ridiculed. This is really important. This is a primary care thing. It's just like something we can do. And then you find, all right, plant-based protein has a place in kidney disease because less phosphorus is absorbed.
Mm.
And other things, it's less acidic. There's a number of things, but in this little conversation, so I'd like to see a panel with all those things. Then Nutrival, I love that. Dysbiosis testing, heavy metal testing, oat testing, SNP
Those
testing.
are your go-to.
And I may not do that the first visit with anybody, everybody. Some people have all that information, but in time, you start slow. Like, first of all, what's this person's life like? Who's supporting you in your life? Are you stressed? Are you eating stupid? Because you have good excuses to eat stupid. I did, but you know, and I was actually pretty strict, but I still, when I look back, I'm like, well, expedient eating bites your butt in the end. It's like true confession,
Does.
and you don't even have to have these thoughts until the gun's to your head.
Yeah.
And as far as I was concerned, I had the gun to my head and I was like, I have nothing to lose, I have to be honest. And I've changed a lot. I'm sort of this like prude about food. I'm a food prude. I don't want stuff. I don't want to eat things
I
that are
mean,
gonna hurt.
speaking with food ramen, I feel like the thing sometimes, and I don't know if Tammy has had the same issue. Like, to me, it's a bit challenging when we're trying to discuss about diet and nutrition with these patients with CKD, especially because there's so much scare around the protein. There's always the back and forth. should I do plant protein versus animal protein? What would be the limit? Like there's always such like confusion or people like wanting to be like really, really detail into like how much protein they could do. Can they do protein? Like I always recommend my patients that if you can do obviously eat your protein, obviously better, but there's always the question what kind of protein powder I could use, say
Yeah.
for my kidney. That there's always a lot of conversation around the protein consumption. I don't know if you can kind of
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that
I'd
based on your
love to because
experience.
I'm very opinionated about it. I've seen so many people do better when we actually figure it out. Kilograms of optimal body weight. You want that. Then it depends on how severe. There's some things that some patients are like, whoa, they're off the chart. They're going fast. I'm going to be way more conservative. Other people, it's like, all right, we want to keep things and get them better. Point 0.6 to point 0.8 grams per kilo is generally the thing. If you have a sarcopenic person losing muscle, and that was me, I mean, I got down to 82 pounds. I had to convince myself, no, you're not dying. My mother died, weighed 82 pounds. So I was like, all right, this is it, I'm dying. And so brought myself up to 1 gram per kilo. And because I weighed 82 pounds, I was basing it on 100 pounds. Because, and you see both. You see like skinny kidney people, and you also see overweight kidney people. And so that matters. And I've seen so many people improve when they just fine tune it. I encourage folks to use Chronometer. It's free. It works well. It really helped. It's annoying. It's a pain. You got to get a scale. We did it. My husband, thank God, helped me do this because I'm a number phobe. It's like, I don't know, this much, And so, he measures everything. And so that matters. And then, when I started looking into it, like, I mean, the other thing, an advanced lipid panel helps. You want that in a patient
Any
that has a
particular marker that
problem.
you're looking into with the
Just the
advanced
array. Like, is there something going on here? If somebody's sky high cholesterol, okay, maybe we have to deal with it, or they're, the ApoB and the lipoprotein. It's like just paying attention to that stuff. I can't say I'm not a lover of statins, but some people do better with them. And, I'm not a lover of ACE inhibitors, but they help some people. So, I think if somebody's that fragile, use the meds. Fix your lifestyle, maybe you get rid of the meds. And that's been the way in my practice for so long. And so the plant-based thing, if you're seeing somebody very acidic, okay, plant-based or plant dominant doesn't mean you never eat animal. Maybe, okay, this is a person who's having bacon and eggs and a roast beef sandwich and, blah, blah for dinner. Chill. Maybe you don't have to have meat every meal, or animal protein. Learn how to replace some of those meals. It doesn't have to be like dramatic tomorrow. I have to change everything. I think that the body doesn't work like that. I live at the ocean, and so I watch boats. Little boats can turn around easily. Big boats, it takes a long time. And so as we make changes, it's like breathe. That's another thing I teach is to learn how to do this kind of breathing practice. It's free. Whenever they're stressed, it's like instant high. I mean, I call it go to Vegas. Not that kind of Vegas. Yeah, and
That's
so,
amazing.
it takes time. I mean, everybody's different. Like people with bad oxalate issues, all the plant proteins are like challenging.
It's a challenge. Yep.
But you still can do it. I mean, and I've worked with some people who are like oxalate overloaded. And, like, I mean, I personally mostly eat tofu and beans as my protein, but I eat egg whites for breakfast. The dog loves it because the yolk, they're wonderful, but it's too much phosphorus for me. And I've had elevated phosphorus because of this gut injury. So you have to like listen to the whole story. And, ultimately, everybody gets to choose. If there's somebody who absolutely cannot stand the idea of not eating meat, I'll work with that.
Well, I know that there's a trend, not a trend, but there's usually because I've had some patient that has worked fantastic, and I know Dr. Tammy has has actually I don't know how you are, Tammy, with the carnivore or not, but I have had so many people that my complex cases or patient dealing with a lot of gut issues or parasitic where the carnivore diet was like what helped them. And then you have obviously also the other side of the coin, like myself with a lot of cardiovascular risk, and then my trying to be careful with the animal protein consumption just because all my ApoB markers, inflammatory cholesterol shoots up high. So it's kind of like a balancing act at times. But
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with people who were doing carnivore. Some I've seen their kidney function just plummeted. You're like, oh my God. Not everybody, so it's interesting. And so you go, all right, if this person can handle some magnesium citrate, I have magnesium citrate powder. I cook with it. I mean, as far as I know, most people can handle. If they eat my food, then they're going to get some. And bicarb. I mean, the other thing that I like to use a lot is Acacia Senegal. It's a powder. You can get it on Amazon. Start with a teaspoon a day. It goes in my tea. It swabs up creatinine and toxins and phosphorus in the gut. So you use your gut as a adjunct. I mean, the Chinese call it intestinal dialysis. So you're hiring your gut to help with that. Also like doing like hot baths and sweating, not over 104 can harm the kidney. So you're hiring your skin. You're getting help from the rest of the body that can help get rid of toxins and fluids. And
so it's like a prebiotic.
it's a prebiotic. And it also is a butyrate enhancer for the colon cells. So it's really cool stuff. I mean, it's the goo from a certain acacia tree. I learned about it actually, I mean, early on, probably like within months of dealing with this from the DaVita, the dialysis company's website. It was like kind of like way back underneath things. And I got in touch with researchers from the Middle East who said, oh, we get our patients off dialysis using this. Like,
Hello.
Didn't know
so
that.
I
I'm
was
like,
like, so I spent, I sat here, spent time. I found a notebook that had a lot of the acacia research that I'd written down. So, it's just something I tell pretty much everybody, unless they have some issue that, you know, you can, excessive amount of it can be harmful. It can get you constipated unless you hydrate adequately. So you really have to make sure somebody's,
you say
dealing
you're
with their
only one teaspoon, Robin. I'm sorry.
maximum is 5 teaspoons. So, I just tell people start with one and see. Oftentimes they say, oh, yeah, I do it a couple times a week. And I'm like, no, 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 keep doing. See, your creatinine's still high. Add that. And it's not like pill for ill. Now we're used to you got a headache, you take an aspirin, you're healed. This is like a symphony of I feel like I'm playing ping pong with 40 balls most of the time.
Totally. Or whack-a-mole. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So now
Um,
I love your background. I love that you're in Hawaii. Now I will be coming. I don't think we're going to Malachi or else I would totally hang out with you in Hubs. But do people need
you should come and
to
visit us.
we totally should. We're on a cruise or else I have to look at the itinerary.
Mm.
Maybe.
Um, People obviously can reach you virtually. I know one of the things I'm doing is I have a 19-year-old whose kidneys were kaput from Keppra, high dose Keppra,
Oh,
1500
wow.
twice daily. And we're going to do a consult with Dr. Rose coming up. But in general, you do see people for this.
What I'm doing of late, this is kind of exciting because, most people don't realize this, but supposed to practice in the states you're licensed. So somebody lives on that side of the line over there. And so a lot, I mean, I'm sitting here. Occasionally I talk to someone who lives here, but mostly it's this way. And so I worked with an attorney to write up paperwork for me as a health coach so that I'm basically offering health coaching. Essentially, that's what I've been doing anyway. I don't stop being a physician, but I'm going to have people sign the thing saying, I understand that Dr. Rose is not being Dr. Rose, she's being health coach Rose or something. I don't know. And so my website is worth looking at. I've been having so much fun doing these blog posts. I mean, as I come up with something and I'm like, oh my God. And people are really appreciating it because it's like it's just us having a conversation. And so there's blog posting there. I've done a lot of these. We put all the podcasts that I do, so they're all on there. And I'm trying to be a little bit more motivated, like my kidney garden, because I'm growing, probably 40 or 50 herbs that are kidney
I wish we
friendly.
can visit your garden.
Right?
That is
I know,
amazing
right?
over there.
In my kidney kitchen, because, I mean, we have Paul learned to ferment food. And so our kitchen is like a little workshop, in between his herbs and his ferments, there's no counter space. I'm just like, all this stuff out of here. And, it's like I keep discovering more and more beautiful foods. I was a health food chef in the 70s. That was one of my delights in life. I loved growing and cooking food. I lived with a bunch of people. We had a big garden and then we ran a restaurant. So, it's like that, and working as a nurse's aide, I think really was the backbone of being a doctor, and understanding how people are when they're sick. I mean, I was kind of shocked at how I was treated by the parade of doctors that I had to see when I was very sick. I was kind of embarrassed for them sometimes with the lack of connection, and I just felt like, I mean, one of the nephrologists I saw basically came in. They wanted me to take my clothes off and put on a piece of paper, which I said I didn't need to. That I don't wear underwear, and he could listen to my chest easily when it's time. And then he came in and they wanted me to sit behind him. And I said, I really would rather talk to his front than his back. And I felt like a brat of a patient, but it's like, I'm the attending here, and I want to see you treat me as the human that I am. I mean, and that was really even stupid because I basically was clear I'm not going to do dialysis. I know that. It's like that's not on my menu. I'm old enough. If it's time to die, I'll die. And I got better. But he basically started harassing me. Will you do dialysis when you're 95? I look at Paul like, oh God. And how about when you're 85? How about when you're 75? And I said, why don't we talk about what I need to know now? Like, what about protein? "Well, I don't talk about that. They don't even know what amino acids are." And I said, doctor, I could give you a lecture on amino acids. Well, I just don't talk about that. So I know this is happening to other people.
Still to this day. Yes. Keeps up.
For sure.
And
How
so
great.
we're here to help that. I call it elevating hell. I'm here to raise hell. I want to bring us out of that because raise hell and go to Vegas.
That sounds good. I like it.
Namaste kind of way. And so there, we have so much we can do. I love talking about this. So anyway, Rhenology is kidneysuccess.com. All one
I
run
just pulled
on.
it up. I was like, once you said that, I was like, how do I not know this? And I'm already on there. Like, what else has she said? I'm going to be like, my husband's going to be
Yeah.
bored. I'm going to be listening to this before bed tonight. So thank you.
And check out, I mean, some of the last blog posts I've written is my excitement about the tubules and about, this SNS thing. I'm going to write up the notes from the talk I just did with Fiona about that because it's so important and so pathologically important. And yet it's really not addressed as a thing. I mean, I'm laugh when I say the word renalaise because I went to see an internist in Honolulu. For me, it's like an hour drive, an airplane, a taxi to go see somebody. And, so you got to mean it when you do all that. And so I mentioned Renology to her, and she's an internist, this cute little Filipino doc, and she looks at me, and her eyes got really big, and she's like, "I don't know what that is." Oh, it just cracked me up, and I said, "Neither did I until I needed to know. I'll send you some references." And so it's just like, I mean, we don't know. We're primary care. We need to know. Somebody comes in saying, I'm having fatigue. I can't really sleep good. No, sometimes my feet they don't feel good, a little swollen. Kidney,
Crazy.
it's renal. It's not just,
Sounds like quite a lot of our own patients. Yeah.
Sounds like me.
Yep.
at least consider, and when you find somebody in stage 2, it's like I say, CK little d. This is the decline. Let's fine tune. I often use the analogy like, if if you're flying a plane, I got to do that when I was a med student, because we were flying patients back and forth from the reservation to Phoenix. And so I was an RN, so I got to go. The other med students couldn't go because they needed a nurse on the flight. And so I sort of had a little romance going with one of the pilots while I was off at the reservation. So he was showing me, you're as you're flying, you're like adjusting constantly. And so, in a way, that's kind of what we're doing with this. You have a decline. Let's fix the mitochondria. There's some dysbiosis. Let's work on your sleep. You got a bunch of stuff in your garage that's toxic, let's look at your tubules to make sure the tubules aren't getting environmentally hazarded. So there's a lot of the cardio stuff, nitric oxide. We have so many things that we know. And then that doesn't even start talking about heavy metals, mold, all these weird infections that you don't know about unless you think about it and look. And so, we have so much we can do, and that's primary care. People don't have to be like laying in bed to be a primary care patient. I like the vertical, I like the boring. People, ER doctors say, God, how do you stand that? I mean, I love that. It's a love affair. It's like a loving friendship that I've felt. I mean, I've lived here for 13 years, and with the embezzlement, it totally messed up my practice. And some people came along with me. I recreated this thing in a teeny little place, and then I met Paul, and that was the end of the story. But these are people who are still asking me for help. It's like there's a human connection, and it really is health care. Like these are precious souls to me. And so, having that loving connection means somebody's more hopeful that I can do this. I'm not
That's where
alone.
true healing starts, right there with the connection.
Yeah. Yeah. And in med school, did they ever tell you you should be loving with your patients?
And I
And
went
was
to
that
DO school. I went to like touchy-feely, DO school.
Ask you that.
well,
I didn't know you were DO. Okay.
Yeah. Which is why I went that way, because I felt like they were more holistic and more like full body, but they never, other than in the interview, they hugged me at the end. Like, whereas the MDs were just like, thanks, thanks, Yeah. But no, they never talk, having an open heart, all of the things Dr. Robbins talking about that true soul connection of feeling, empathy and knowing that if you were walking this journey, you would want somebody to feel like, what would you do if it were my sister or, my
Yeah.
loved one?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think maybe because I grew up also kind of like in a culture that we're very touchy feely, like we're always on each other. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
where I did medical school, but yeah, for me, that was an adjustment coming here when I did my medical residency in the US and doing internal medicine. I had to be more like, stoic and have more like reservation and being like distance apart. You're there, I'm here. And it wasn't also for me, of course, then I started working and doing what I'm currently doing now. So it's kind of
Yeah, I know. I love this. I mean, I love this conversation. So, when I was a med student, Destiny brought me to the Holistic Medical Association as a first year. Second semester, first year, I went to this conference. Ended up on the board.
That sounds right.
Sometime in person, I'll tell you more of the story. I won't do it on here. It gave me access to people like Bernie Siegel, who taught me hug your patients. A nice Jewish man, I mean, ethnic cultures do that. And we need to reclaim, And so I did that all through med school. I did that all through residency. If people didn't like it, they were like, I didn't care. And,
Love it.
I mean, honestly, I was an old hippie, mid-60s, I threw out the bra and stopped shaving my armpits, all that we were about, and started questioning Campbell's soup and questioning a lot of things. And so I had a bit of an attitude going through medicine, which was I wasn't obliged to kowtow to those attitudes, and then was blessed. I mean, I feel like the universe blessed me with this collection of people. I mean, incredible people. In fact, I mean, Andrew Weil was my friend and talked me into going to med school. I wanted to be a naturopath. And I tell the story. He grabbed me by the wrist and started twisting. And so I took the MCAT and was like, and I was in Tucson. So, sometimes I would just go and pull up myself in his office and go, "What are you learning? Oh, let me see." This was long before the integrative fellowship, etc.
Yes,
So
started.
we were doing talks. I mean, some of them were at my house, like every other week, Andy talks. And so, I see in the functional community, people are having to unravel that stuff that you're talking about, that you take it on so that you don't get hassled, I mean, how you present a case, without any humanity to it. And so it really is a transformation for all of us. And it's a blessing to have patients who will do that with you, who will like merge with you and trust you, and we all change together and we learn. I mean, I learned so much from my patients. I still do. People tell me, "Oh, have you tried this?" It's like, "Oh, I think I want to know about that." I mean, we're all in this together.
I always learn something new from my patient, even a new patient of mine that had struggles with mold. And we were kind of like chit chatting about like dancing and what you do for activity and movement. And she's like, "Yeah, I found a bachata place." And I'm like, "Bachata? I need to go there. Tell me where it is so maybe we can go dancing." And
That
I'm like
sounds
that with my
fun.
patients. I'm not like, like, oh, because it's a patient. I mean, there has to be certain kind of like boundaries, of course, but
Well, right.
I'm of course very, tune or having a little warmth and empathy always. And I know that's
Yeah,
what I enjoy doing also when I have these
exactly.
conversations, getting to
You
know
don't
them.
get burnt out if you do that.
That's
And you
right.
know what gets them even motivated, because that kind of helps me in my work as well. Kind of like, oh, let's get you
Well,
back so you can not have so much pain and you can keep dancing bachata and those kind of things. And
I
people,
love that.
that's yeah, that's
That's cool. I had
medicine.
a
That's something right
belly
there.
dance class for women over 40. They were my patients. It was really fun. Women reclaim, let's reclaim our pelvic muscles, and, let the girls shimmy, and, it was really quite fun. And my office nurse and I actually had a dance class after our clinic, and we would put on our outfits. And sometimes I still had patients, like if I did acupuncture at the end of the day. I tell the story. I love to say there was one woman who came often, and she was a lesbian. And so here's these two belly dancers who'd come in and take her needles out. We were all, it's like community. She
Love
was a
it.
social worker. She was a beautiful woman and had some issues that we were working with. And playful. It's like that was what I realized is, I mean, when you're in the hospital, it's heavy, it's serious, and everybody has too much to do. So it's like, wow, I didn't have to do that. My office, I mean, and actually, I mean, my office and house was one building. And sometimes, and I lived in Ashland, Oregon. So, it was small enough community. We knew each other. Okay, we danced here, we did this here. And I would tell somebody, "You're stressed out. I have two people I need to see before you. Go hang out in my meditation room." And I just put them in my house in this beautiful plant laden, with all the cool crystals and gorgeous things that I had, and so, they're part of what I'm doing with kidney reflects all of that. It's not like, okay, you have 7 minutes that I'm gonna tell you this, 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 and this.
And
See you in
now
3 months.
take this.
I just can't. I don't want to anymore. I mean, it's like, and there's a certain thing, like, I like that you bring that up, like in the ethnic way, because, you know, when I traveled through the Middle East, you sat down and talked for a while. Have some tea. Where are you from? Before you get down to, so what do you want? And I found that I did that with my patients. I just shoot the breeze. How's it going? I would tell my stories, and then the energy would settle, and we were hanging out. Okay, man. And I'm a Sagittarius, so I would wait. All of a sudden, time. And they were like, "Oh, okay, I guess we're doing this," because it's like, boy, when that opening comes, it's like waiting for the fly in the kitchen. If you don't move fast, you still got to fly.
Love that.
Yay! Oh, it's so fun to talk to you guys. This is
I
great.
was just gonna say I could do this all night. I absolutely love it.
So
So
much
great.
stuff that we can definitely keep talking, Rob.
Yeah, I
Rob.
feel like she needs to come back to give us like I feel like we just touched.
I'd love to. I mean,
And
I
we need
want
to take a
people to
deeper
know.
dive in the peptide and bioregulator, I mean, I guess we can make just a section of those only. I mean, I'm just scratching the surface on those. I know you're much more advanced on those, Dr. Rose, especially with the Rhenology book that you recently wrote.
Yeah.
But
And it's
it
all of it because if you don't do the other stuff, they're not gonna work as well. It's kind of this constant, like, loop. So, I mean, I love the kidney bioregulator. I mean, I would love to come back. Let's do another one and just part
yeah,
2, talk
let's
about
definitely.
bioregulators and where they're how
Love
to
it.
place them and how do you know?
Yeah, because I gotta be honest, I could listen to you talk. I'm usually pretty chatty, and I literally was, like, starstruck. I could listen to you talk for, like, 4 more hours.
Same here, same here.
I'm really flattered. So, after sitting in this place for these years and being sick, I felt very, like, diminished. And
Mhm.
somehow
Yep,
getting better, I mean,
incredible.
I wake up and do gratitude prayers every day. And to have this passion be heard and realizing how many of us there are that need this to be heard, both the clinicians and the patients. And so thank you.
Well, we
Such a pleasure.
yeah, definitely a pleasure. And I feel like that it's kind of interesting that all three of us has had like our own sort of healing journey and what's brought us to where we at currently. That always helps us to be even better as physicians. Not just as physicians, I feel like even a better person overall. I don't know. Because it kind of
Yeah.
Totally.
changes you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's powerful. I mean, early on, I was told something wounded healer. I was like, man, I was like a big brat about it. And I didn't like that. I'm like, I'm not wounded. That. But now I really get it. It's like just what you're saying. Patients will say, well, you don't understand. And it's like, well, they can't tell me that. Like, you do understand. Well, I do. That's why I'm doing this.
And I think that's where the heart and soul healing comes in, like you say. You don't just, say, "Come on, get to it. Let me hear this." You drop into it, you feel, when the patient is ready to give their story, and then because you've been there. You've been there with the guy that did this to you the whole time.
Yeah.
You've
Or the one that said, get a handle on your anxiety.
ugh,
Like, wait a minute,
barf.
you're
That
a
is such a
physician,
bummer.
and what you're doing is blaming me for this illness. And that
And who
then makes
wouldn't be
me
anxious?
blame myself. And so it is a difference. I mean, there is a psychiatric status of anxiety. On the other hand, I actually think a lot of that is like dysbiosis and inflammation anyway. We're coming around this big circle to realize, I mean, we have beautiful functional psychiatrists who are teaching us a lot of that, all the time, that it's physiology that we can fine tune. It's not like, oh, you're a crazy person who needs a drug, or a facility. I mean, and when we wait so long, I mean, that's part of it. I wrote that in the book. Like, what are you waiting for? Is my Jersey girl meme. I don't want to wait. I want to do this yesterday. Well, why didn't I know? And when we look back in my labs, I had a GFR in the 70s prior. Didn't know it. GFR greater than 60 is normal, right?
Mm-mm.
So we're like really pioneering new country. We're building new housing developments and the wilderness in a way, and we'll cultivate gardens there and thrive together because this isn't necessary. And I'm irritated about it, but that's just my nature. But honestly, when you look at it, there wasn't labs for kidney stuff, until not that long ago. And so it takes a few generations sometimes. I mean, they had to come up with, oh, the person has edema. All right, that person's so advanced and they have congestive failure and they're going to die. Gee, they have kidney disease. Ooh, kidney disease is serious. People would always ask me, are you on dialysis? Like, no, the public doesn't realize, there's this whole CK little d thing going on that's way before this chronic kidney dead, basically. It's like dialysis without the machine are not alive. And so I want life, I want Rhenology for life. And so, all of us together, I mean, all it takes is being aware. Because like I said, even the basic labs are like, ooh. And I'm available to talk to clinicians. I review cases and say, let's look together because I'm now sort of automatic. I look and go, I don't like that. And look at those. And I'm still learning, I mean, every day it's amazing. Like, what about that calcium phosphorus thing? There's so much more. So we have lots to be hopeful.
See, we just keep diving in. I'm like, oh, let me turn the page. Let's do another chapter with Dr. Robin. And so I could just look at the Hawaiian landscape and her garden. I think it might be a business expense that we have to go there, Dr.
That's
Gabby.
right.
Yeah, I will put it as a
Yeah, we
business.
could do some lives here. Here, I'll show you what I'm seeing because I got my phone.
Dr. Gabby didn't get to see it before she jumped on.
That's
Look
so
at that.
beautiful.
Oh my
It's just
goodness.
so pretty.
It looks
I'm
fake. It
behind
looks
it.
so good.
I
So
know,
much
right?
fun.
I got some bamboo behind me, and it's winter time. I mean, I think it's cold. I have a jacket on. Let's see. I'll tell you what it is. Just so you know, 79 degrees. It's a little chilly.
Oh, chilly.
Just a little.
Negative 19 on my walk today.
Oh God, I
Oh
can't
my
even
God. I was
imagine. I mean,
complaining. Where we dropped to 20.
I did I was a family nurse practitioner before I went to med school, and I did that in Columbia, Missouri. It got like 30 below. And that's when I moved to Arizona.
You're like, that's enough of that.
It's,
That's also why I'm coming to your side of the world for 2 weeks, because February is not my favorite month.
oh yeah, yeah. There's something wonderful about it. It's like winter. Like the light's different, but when there's sunshine, I know.
Love
Maybe
it.
you can figure out a way to like, if the boat stops, you could like hop over for the day.
I totally would. We'll have to chat about that.
Monica just did that. Monica and her husband came
Oh,
just for
I
the
saw
day.
the picture.
I
Yeah.
did too.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it was so sweet. They had come before, and I just have this memory. She's like a little Energizer bunny. She and I took a swim like way out that way, and then came back. It was against the current. The two of us were like maniacs. And it's just like, oh. So every time I go out that way, I think of Monica now. Yeah.
I love that.
It's awesome.
I love it when we get to see our family.
Yeah.
I know, because I haven't, I haven't wanted to travel. And so I don't go to conferences. I mean, for a lot of reasons, the EMF and the food, and then, it's like that's the level of
I
commitment
don't
that I'm
think that I
talking
haven't met
about.
with you in person,
I
Robin.
Yeah.
haven't.
No, I haven't gone to any meetings. I mean, Daniel came to visit, so I got to see him. Jen Allen came to visit, and Monica and
Love it.
Natalie met him. So it's like, so come. I have a beautiful
Definitely
place
gonna
for
mark
people
it
to
down
stay.
and 20,
I
20,
love it.
hopefully.
I know. Well, let's do this again, and we can
We'll finish the convo.
Yeah.
or
Well,
at
it's
least
probably never
continue.
finished.
I
You
know we can
continue.
continue.
Exactly.
We continue.
Get me talking about tubules. Wow.
That's exactly right. That was my thing, and I was going to ask, and I was like, no, we'll save that for next time because I do want to know that, but
Yeah,
I
because
know
there's
that we'll get a
testing
deep dive.
and it'll force me. See, every time I do this, I'm like the pull it out the what kind of student. And
Totally.
so if I know I'm doing a talk, I frenetically find new information. Like, oh, let's make
Love it.
this even more. And so let's do that. I would love that.
I love it.
Let's do it.
Thank you for taking such time out of the gorgeous loveliness of your retirement, which you're never going to retire, but
I just call it retread.
I love it.
That's right. Like
No
that.
beeper. It's like
Use that
I'm
word.
not that great at answering things, but I'm doing it. It's not.
So
But what I-
perfect.
What I really would like is to have enough places, like to have a retreat center. People come work in my garden with me. So you
I
never
love
know.
that.
No, you should do our functional men group retreat.
I know. I've thought about it. I mean, there actually is a retreat center on Molokai that would be perfect. It's even further out than I am, and so it's a beautiful place. I've thought about that. Like, but I need somebody else to organize it, and then I'll just be the hostess.
Love it.
Organization.
What else is
Anytime.
possible?
But yeah,
Take good care of yourselves. I know you're going through stuff, and we all are, and
We
everybody
love
who's
you.
listening.
Big hugs,
Yeah.
Dr. Robin.
Thank you guys so much.
Bye to delight.
bye.
And as we wrap up today's conversation, we just want to say thank you for spending this time with us in the consult room. If something you heard today resonated, if it sparked curiosity, hope, or even a new question, please share this episode with a friend or family member who might need it too. We'd also love to hear from you. Send us your comments, reflections, or topics you'd like us to explore in future episodes. These conversations are meant to be shared, and your voice helps guide where we go next. Until our next episode, take gentle care of yourself, trust your body's wisdom, and remember, you're not alone on this healing journey.